Most people who copy big creators think they are being smart. You look at what works, you match the format, and you post more consistently. It feels like you're finally doing things the right way. And that's why this is hard to notice. Because nothing breaks at first. The work looks better, the advice makes sense. But slowly, without meaning to, you stop deciding what this is for. And once that happens, it doesn't feel like a mistake. It feels like progress. What makes this tricky is the feeling it comes with. It doesn't feel like fear. It doesn't feel like copying. It feels like relief. Like you have stopped guessing. Like you know what's expected. Like you're being disciplined instead of reckless. That feeling is what keeps people here. Because when the work gets heavier, you don't think what is wrong. You assume this is what just commitment feels like. And by the time you notice something's off, you're already invested in continuing. What most people miss is when the commitment actually happens. It's not when you say, I'm going to copy this format. It's when you decide not to question it anymore. You keep posting the same way because it worked once. Then you post again because it worked twice. Then again because changing it now would reset everything. At some point, you're no longer choosing the structure. You're maintaining it. Not because it's perfect, but because too much depends on it continuing. And that's the moment that matters. Because from there on, your future isn't being designed, it's being protected. This is where control starts to move. Nothing dramatic happens. No failure, no burnout. You just stop deciding from scratch. Instead of asking, is this what I want to make? You ask, will this hurt what's already working? That one change does something subtle. Your decisions start referencing the past, not the future. You don't feel trapped, you feel careful. And careful feels responsible. But from here on, the work isn't shaped by intention anymore. It's shaped by risk avoidance. Not because you are weak, but because the structure now has momentum. And momentum doesn't ask what you want. This is why people can look like they're progressing while privately feeling stuck. The matrix improves. People respond from the outside. Everything looks correct. But internally, slowing down feels risky. Not because things are bad, but because too much now depends on continuing what you're already doing. That's when people say things like, I can't pause right now. I'll rethink this later. I just need to keep momentum. They are not lying. They are responding to a structure that punishes silence. At this point, most people misread the problem. They think the answer is more consistency, more output, more commitment to what already works. But that doesn't resolve the tension. It just increases the cost of changing direction. And the longer you stay inside something that works, the harder it becomes to admit that it's working towards the wrong life. One of the hardest parts of building something real is that you can't see where your judgment quietly drifts. Not because you are inexperienced, but because proximity makes blind spots invisible. That's why some founders move fast for years and still feel something is fundamentally misaligned. Not their effort, not their intelligence. Their decisions are forming inside a frame they never chose consciously. I don't run coaching. I don't give frameworks. I run a private access for people who want their judgment observed while it's forming, before momentum locks them into the wrong future. If you already know why that matters, you will find it. If not, this video did its job. Here's something you will notice if you watch closely. Advice that grows large creators almost always makes small creators noisier, not clearer. It increases activity, rarely recognition. That difference matters more than people admit. Big creators repeat to protect their identity. Their audience already knows who they really are. Repetition makes them easier to remember, not easier to understand. At scale, sameness is a feature. When smaller creators adopt that same behavior, they are not signaling identity. They are asking to be decoded. Cold viewers don't know what to hold on to yet. So density feels heavy. Polish feels distant. Consistency feels generic. Nothing is wrong with the content. It's just arriving too early. Each video asks the viewer to start over. Even when someone likes the video, they don't recognize the next one. Over time, this trains a specific behavior. You optimize for being impressive in isolation instead of being recognizable over time. The system responds accordingly, not with rejection, with indifference. That's why so many people feel like they are improving, but nothing compounds. They didn't fail, they succeeded at the wrong thing. There's a moment most people dismiss. It's when something clearer, smarter, more complete gets ignored, while something rougher, narrower, slightly unfinished gets repeated. Not praised, repeated. That difference is easy to rationalize until it happens again and again. That's when it becomes uncomfortable. Clarity feels generous, it feels responsible, but at a small scale, clarity often does something else. It finishes the thought for the viewer, which means there's nothing left to carry forward. The moment ends cleanly, so does the memory. People don't repeat what taught them, they repeat what named something they already felt. That's why unfinished ideas travel further than polished ones. This video wasn't about content, creators, or copying. It was about who gets to decide what your work is shaped by. Most people never choose that consciously. They inherit it from advice, formats, matrix, and incentives that were never designed for their life. That's how people wake up years in, the skills they didn't want, the schedule they didn't design, and an audience that only responds when they perform a version of themselves they no longer recognize. They just never stopped long enough to notice what they were consenting to. If this felt uncomfortable, good. That means you recognize something you have been trying to name. There's nothing to do with that right now. No step, no fix, no next move. Just notice what you can no longer unsee. That's where real brands start.